Afternoon, folks. Welcome to the stream. It's Tuesday, time for another dev day, and today it's Big Game Dev. That's right, after an age of not doing it, I'm finally jumping back into my big long-term Construct 3 project, and I'm excited. Are you excited? Probably not, but I am. Let's do this thing. Now, today, I've been kind of doing some stuff in the background for this, so I do kind of know what I'm doing. But I went back, and I'm going to show you the current iteration of my game project. Now, on Tuesday last week, we were building a cookie game, and as part of that, we kind of had a chat about looking through your projects, figuring out where you could replace lots of bitty code with functions, things like that, making it a lot more tidy. And then I realised, yes, there is a big chunk of my game that probably I need to go through and refactor again for the second time. Because, you know, that's game dev. As I was explaining it to someone, you know, you build a thing works, you go and do something else, come back to the first thing, realise it's awful, and start again. And that's what we're going to do today. So I need to open up a couple of event sheets. Probably we'll start with the overworld. So we're looking at my NPC structure. Now, for those of you who don't know, this game is a Pokemon-inspired RPG. So we've got your random creature encounters, NPCs you can talk to and fight with, all that kind of fun stuff. I mean, half of it's not implemented, but you know, we're getting there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 6 different kinds of NPCs, categorized by their movement kinds. So you've got guys who just stand in one place, you've got people who spin around on the spot, people who follow a path, random things, and then the old favourite, the following NPC, which is still a little broken, but it's fine. And in all of this, you've got a lot of... It's kind of based on states, so you tell the NPCs to do different things depending on what state it's currently in, and that's defined by an instance variable. Now I have all of this for each of these Npc types, which kind of gets a bit ridiculous, especially when you get down to things like the non-random rotate, which has lots of different states it can be in depending on which animations it needs to pick. So let's say it wants to face up and down only, that's a different state to clockwise, and it all gets very complicated. And some of the states like idle and talking are defined, you know, 3 or 4 times, and it's a lot of redundant code. So what I have done, we'll open up a new project, or a different project I should say. And the reason I discovered all of this was because I've been working on the dialogue system for this game, so you know, you need to actually be able to talk to NPCs. I realised that the way my NPCs are currently built, it's going to be incredibly hard to get this JSON-based system actually into the game. So I spent some time refactoring the whole thing, using more families, trying to condense it down, and I'm going to try and get this into the main game today, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about refactoring, tidying everything up, picking all those fun things, and I mean, hopefully it's useful. If nothing else, it's a very big job that I need to do, and it'll be nice to have some company while I do it. So first thing to do, very, very important. I'm going to close this version of my main game file, because we are about to make some really large changes. So what I've already done, just need to refresh my OneDrive. I have already created a new copy of the game file that I can work in. That way, if nothing comes together as planned, then it doesn't matter. I have a previous version I can go back to, and it's completely fine. Backups are your friends. You have to excuse me. I think I might be suffering with a little bit of a cold at the moment, so if I sound a bit weird and snuffly, that's why. Okay, we don't need any of this stuff, so let's close everything. So, for the battle dialogue test, we want our game layout, and we want functions, and game. Then, from the main game file, we don't need any of the layouts for the time being. We just need overworld, we need player, and we need global. I may yet change how half these event sheets are, but for the time being, this is how I've split it out. So global is where I store all my functions, a few global variables, all nicely arranged as to what they are related to. So, if you didn't know, in Construct, you can open multiple event sheets or layouts or whatever you want side by side, which makes it really easy to work on either moving things between one project or, in this case, moving stuff or copying stuff from one project to another. To do that, so we'll have our Divinwall's game stuff this side, and we will have our dialogue test project on the right hand side. Ooh, oh no, I didn't want that to go there. Oh, let's pop that over there, and global. So now you'll see we've got two different sets of tabs. Tabs at the top, tabs at the bottom. So I can now have different event sheets side by side. I can compare how all my code's looking between them, figure out where things might be broken, how I can refactor it, all that kind of fun stuff. Minimize that for the time being, because the first thing I need to do is strip out a lot of this. My global variables are all fine. My initiate interaction function should be fine, but realistically, NPC talk needs to go because it will be replaced by several different functions for the dialogue system. So we can, rather than delete it completely, I'm just going to disable it for the time being, and I'm going to drop everything that's disabled into its own little group so I can keep an eye on it. That way I'm not deleting anything per se. Because it may come to it that fight and line of sight walk are still going to be used. I just need to figure out... There's a lot to put into this. I don't know if it's going to all be done in this one stream. There's a lot to do in 2 hours. So we want a group, which is disabled functions. So dialogue format, get number of lines, and end dialogue are all part of the new dialogue system, so those are fine. We don't need to worry about random encounter or local storage. The non-random rotate animations are fine. I may rename them, but all of that can go into our new disabled box, so they're out of the way. And obviously NPCs is where we're going to be working on here. We'll start with the statics because they are the easiest ones. They literally stand in one place until, in theory, you walk in front of them and then they might walk towards you, but we'll see if we get that far. But, you know. Okay, so in the main game file, we already have 4 different families that we use for the NPC system. Because of various different issues I had, mostly surrounding the set path. These are the guys that will walk in a specific path defined by what are called NPC mover objects. They're little squares that are stored, that have a direction stored on them, and when the NPC overlaps them, their direction changes, they move on to the next bit of the path. And I had a few issues where you could kind of push them off the path, and then because they had the persist behaviour, you could even leave the layout, come back, and they would still be walking into a wall, which was, you know, not ideal. So that's why I split out keepers and NPCs, and it kind of got really messy. So the first thing I'm going to do is strip out those 4 families, which is going to tear out a lot of stuff in here. Then what we need to do is add in some new families. We are going to have a single family for all of the NPC objects. That's keepers, which are the kind of trainer characters, if you will, and the standard NPCs. And it's just going to be the sprites. We'll have a separate family for the bases. Because the way these guys are set up is that you have a sprite that stores all the animations and everything, and then a base that they're pinned to that does all the moving around and so on. So we have our follower, we have non-random rotate, keeper and NPC. Random path. There is just the random path NPC. There is no keeper because I decided that would be too much like hard work. The last thing your player wants is to have someone like randomly walking around the town and then go, "Hey you! I want to fight you!" But you don't really have a way to avoid them because they're random. Random rotate, NPC and keeper, static NPC and set path. Perfect, that's everyone. So that's the NPCs folder. Family, even. Then we want one for bases. So we have keeper base, static NPC base. It's kind of obvious because they're all black squares with my doodles on them. That should be everyone. Excellent. These are our bases. Then we're going to want some families for specific kinds of movement. So we'll have a non-random rotate movement family. There. Random rotate is the next one. And that's RR movement. We want another one which is static. Or, yeah, static because S comes first because of the weird way I named things. I'm going to have to go through this and like apply a proper naming convention or I will get very annoyed. We might not even need a family for static movement, but I've got it there anyway, just in case. And finally, set path. There you are. So we now have a lot more families, but hopefully this means we can condense the code down so that rather than having certain things like the idle states defined, 5, 6, 7 times, we just have it defined once for the common states between all of the NPC types. That's the plan anyway. To go with this, we need to put in a whole bunch of instance variables, and I need to look at our individual objects because various things are going to have their own instance variables and things might get a little complicated. Yeah, we'll take out tile speed X and tile speed Y. Those are all specific to the random path, so that's fine. And spin speed, I will add that to the specific family that requires it. But yeah, again with set path, those can go on the families, otherwise we'll end up with 2 copies and it'll be a bit odd. So let's just do quickly the same for the keepers. The bases should have a pair ID, which we use to pin the correct sprite to the base. Okay, so that's pair ID, which is the ID number of the sprite the base is paired with. Okay, Mpc Instance Variables. We need NPC ID because we will be using that to make sure that the correct NPC is picked during an interaction. We could use UID, but I feel like in this case it's going to be easier for me to set an ID for every single one and go from there. ID the NPC, use for picking. We need the Npc Type, which will define the animations. So in each NPC sprite, I have lots of different folders, or will have lots of different folders that are full of different kinds of animations. So we don't need different objects for a young man, an old lady, a small child, and so on. They're all stored in one object and defined by this instance variable. We also want movement type, which I assume is fairly self-explanatory. But that's how we define what kind of movement the NPC will have. We want state, which is the current state for the NPC. That's our idle, walk, talk, and so on and so forth. Direction, which is the current way the NPC is facing. Then we want interrupted state. I'll call it int state because that's a lot of typing. So when you go and speak to an NPC, if you're then going to a battle, or even if you're not, to be fair, if you've moved the NPC from its original position, by storing its previous ones in interrupted state and interrupted direction, you can reset them once the interaction has concluded if you want to. Let's just copy that so I can do the same thing for int direction. And that's the direction the NPC was facing. There we go. The non-random movement just needs spin speed and animation timer, so let's add those. Spin speed sounds like something for a washing machine, but it is literally how quickly the NPC spins. And animation timer is a timer used to say how quickly animation frames should change. There. Now, random rotate just needs animation timer. So let's just copy that actually. So random rotation. The idea with random rotation movement is that literally they'll just every so often, so in this case every anim timer seconds, they'll pick a new animation frame. Static I don't believe needs anything, but I will leave it there just in case. Excellent. Bases just has pair ID. That's all fine. Oh, we need to do set path. I almost forgot about them. Set path movement. So we put... I might add tile speed X and tile speed Y to the NPCs folder. Just because then we can customize other types of NPCs' walking speeds. Of course it is, because it's somewhere else, which I'll just call it speed X and speed Y. I'm going to set those starting to 32, because that's... It's a kind of right. It's a good number to start with, considering I'm working on a 16 by 16 grid currently. May yet change that. I haven't decided. I kind of need to make that decision sooner rather than later, before the game gets really big, and then I go, actually, you know what? I might work in a 32 by 32 grid. Which, to be fair, is something. It sounds very much like something I would do. So static specific stuff is very little to actually add in here. We need to do the same thing for this, but rather than the NPC sprite... Oh, hang on, let's replace that first. Static NPC sprite, that now needs to be the static keeper sprite. And we need to replace the base as well. Which is there. There we go. So every tick, the position of each sprite will be set to its corresponding base, but of course we need to tell them what those are. So, when the static base is created, we want to set value pair ID to type please static NPC sprite dot UID. Done. Now, copy and paste. We'll replace that. You can press R to replace things nice and quickly in Construct. So when you replace that with the keeper base, so that's that first bit done. Now we need another group in the NPCs overall group, which is going to just be called states, or be NPC states. And then we're going to have another one, which is going to be NPC movement. States will go first because it affects all of them. And then all of these will go into the movement folder. We'll come to that in a minute. So, states. Now that we've at least got the basic stuff in for the static ones, we can kind of test it. We can start adding in the states. Add an event. System. for each, and it's for each of the NPCs family. Add another condition. Check the NPC's state. And does it equal idle? If so, then we want to set the animation to NPCs dot Mpc Type and underscore idle. Then we need to add some differentiators based on the direction. So obviously if we're facing down, then we don't want the same animation playing as if we're facing right. Therefore, if our NPC's direction instance variable is equal to right, then we want to set the animation frame to 3. So we can copy that, paste it 3 times, so that's the idle state done. We actually need 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. So even this, I feel like it could be condensed, but I don't want to. I still want, even though the states do the same thing, I'm happy to have the different event blocks for them just in case. Who knows, it may come like, you know, several months down the line and I look at this and go, why? Why aren't they all in one event block? So the next one we need to add in, again, we'll copy that and paste it. This is going to be our walk state. So the animation name needs to change in that we need to change it to walk, but we also need to add the last bit of this bit, which, because we have different animations for each direction, so we need to base the animation on what, stop please, NPCs dot direction, and that should then pick the correct animation. To avoid having lots of NPCs walking at any given time, I will probably need to move this. I may need to add this pick into the other states, but we'll test that later. Okay, we want to add another condition in there, which is if the base is pair ID is equal to the NPC's UID, then we do all of this stuff. And we want to set tile movement to enabled. Where I redid the thing, didn't I? Oh, yeah. So I imagine that means that none of these, nope, none of them have tile movement anymore, so we need to add that. So family behaviors, we need to add tile movement, otherwise our NPCs are going nowhere. There we go. So bases, set tile movement to enabled, and then we don't need those because we actually need to make it move. So we need to simulate control. Start with right, excellent. And again we need another one of these, which is our challenge state. This is called when the NPC has spotted you and needs to walk towards you to start a fight. So that's the states added. NPC movement, where things get a little bit more complicated. So we can actually change the names of all of these just to be static. NRR for non-random rotate. Again, having them named the same thing across the board will make my life much easier. And I'll leave Nepio's following dog because he's a special case. So that means the states can go. They're disabled, so we'll just drop them down the bottom here. Disable the whole group. Which I believe. So yeah, we now have a static NPC. So I'm intrigued as to what this does to one of our layouts that's got some NPCs on it, given that I've disabled all of the keeper stuff. I'm going to disable the rest of this. Let's just open the good old residential district. Pull that this side. So in theory, if I can remember rightly, there's you. Oh, of course, we have to reset all the instance variables. You're my other static, if I remember rightly. Yes. So I will give you an ID of 1. Mpc type. Let's make you. What do we have? Adult, woman, A. Movement type is static. State is idle. Direction is left. So those two should be the only ones that change. Or, so I'm going to change your direction so that we can tell if you've moved. Right. Everyone else should just be facing down, not doing anything. Okay, we want to review this layout, please. Right, so he's facing right, that's fine. She's facing down. I don't quite know why you're facing left, but okay. Right, even. And you're facing right as well. You've changed to a different one, so you're left, that's good. Oh, that could have something to do with the animations. But either way, these two are working, and that's all I care about right now. Excellent. Okay, the next thing we're going to need to do, just need to do a quick comparison. Because the next ones we're going to tackle are the non-random rotating NPCs. So yeah, these guys can either turn clockwise or anti-clockwise, or they can select between 2 or 3 directions, which uses these functions, which we'll only need 1 of now. So pop to my functions thing. We can get rid of keeper animate, and we're just going to rename that as animate NRR. And because I've not done this yet, I'm fairly sure in this game, and categorising functions is a wonderful thing to do, I'm going to start adding categories. Actually, before I do that, let me just show you why categorising functions is a good idea. Add action, functions. All of my functions are currently in this one big group here, and given the ideas of things I have to do in this game, that list is only going to get bigger and worse and harder to navigate. So, whilst we go through this, I will be adding categories to my functions, which will sort all of this out, and I'll show you what that does in just a moment. I'll pop back into my global, go back to our animating function, which we're now going to call animate NRR, and the category is NPC. Now if we just quickly, I'll show you what that does. Add action, functions. NPC now has its own separate bit. So by the time we get in the rest of the NPC dialogue and various other bits like transitions, they'll all have their own separate categories, which means that list will be broken down and so much easier to use. Categorize your functions. Not mandatory, but very useful. Okay, so we can replace the NPC sprites here with the family of non-random rotate movement. We need to put in a couple of weights just to make sure, which we then do NRR movement dot spin spit. Oh, it's anim timer in this one. That is now our animation function. Now our states. These look a little different because this one had its own different kinds of states, so it's all done down to animation. So this top one here, can we replace that? Yes, we can. We need to add another condition, which is that the movement type is equal to NRR for non-random rotate. We need to get in another sub-event here, because this is going to go underneath it. In fact, we're going to combine all of these into this one event block here at the top. So we need a condition in here which says, is the state clockwise? Then do these things. So we need to set the animation. In fact, let's just grab that out of here. So that needs to change to say, rather than idle, it needs to say clockwise. And again, we can replace these objects with the family. So if then the frame is 0, then the NPC's direction needs to be set to down. Grab those and bring them through. So 1 is left. And then we need to do the same. But instead of that, so we can copy that, paste it in, and that becomes anti-clockwise. And we just need to swap these around. So in this case, 1 is right and 3 is left. So we have clockwise, we have anti-clockwise. Those are the two simple states for the non-random rotate. Then we start to get into the slightly more tedious, slightly more complicated ones. Oh, I missed out the action to set how fast they spin. So set speed to self.spin speed. Just means that, you know, not every NPC is having the exact same kind of movement. Having some sort of variety is nice. So copy and paste. This is going to be LR because it's quicker than writing left, right. For all of the directional ones, we're sticking with the same animation, which is clockwise, which just means that it just stops us getting our animations frames confused. We need another event and actually, hang on. Left, right, so let's just get rid of that one and that one. And in here we need to say system every dot spin speed, then call the animate function. npcs.uid. Oh no, it's npc ID. I'm so used to using UIDs. Then frame 1 is 1 and frame 2 is 3. And now all we need to do is copy and paste that 6 times, or 5 more times, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, another 5 times. And that should all be correct. Let's just have a look. Because I believe you... Nope, you're a random. You're a non-random. So you're going to be ID 2. Mpc type, I think you're young girl, if I remember rightly. Movement type, NRR. We'll start you off as clockwise. And let's see what happens. Debug it so we can change things as we go along. Let's go find her. She's in the park. Ah, we need to give her some extra bits of information, don't we? Because we haven't told her how fast she's spinning. Okay. At least the direction's being set correctly, that's one thing. Cool. Have I got something wrong in the animation? Oh, wait. That might be it. We should actually be able to see. Ah! It is now. It was literally the problem with me not naming the thing correctly and it going, I don't know what to do. There we go. That's good. Okay, so let's change that to clockwise. turn off the highlights so we can see what she's doing. There we go. Let's try left, right. Oh, that's not right. Ah, it's because her speed's still on 1, so we need to set that. That needs to change. Set speed to 0. Let's see if that helps it out. Hey, there we go. So you'll want to obviously play around with the different timers here because they're obviously kind of interacting with each other. It's okay. It kind of works. That's good. The nice thing is the picking is fine. So let's drag those to the rest of them. That means our NPCs certainly work. I'm going to leave the NPCs for now because we've only got half an hour or so left. And I do want to get some of these functions in and sorted out properly. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these two, dialogue format and get number of lines, because those are return functions, so they can have their own category. We're going to turn our sign one into a dialogue function. End dialogue needs to be a dialogue function. So just to prove a point with categorising functions, look how much easier this is now. We have dialogue, we have encounter. There's a few that haven't got a space yet because they're elsewhere, and I've not done them yet. Inventory, local storage, NPC is lovely. It's so much easier. That's the other thing. I don't know if I've got half the things I actually need in here for the dialogue. Now, do I still have my object bank open? I do, because this is where I was laying out my HUD. So we'll copy that. Rename this dialog box answer, because we want to be able to have branching dialogue in this. That kind of becomes a little box there for storing answers in. I believe we have all of the components, the text box that we need. Certainly to get some of the basic functions in anyway. We don't call them anyway yet, but at least if I can get them in and written, that's one less thing to do. So we need one for dialogue line, calling a standard line of dialogue, nothing special. Function. Maybe at some point I'll add timelines if I feel like I need animation stuff and if I figure out how that should work. Okay. So set the dialogue layer to visible. Oh, it's HUD, isn't it? I've called it in this. Now it's the really fun bit, and I'm just going to copy and paste because this is a lot of typing. Add action, set the name text. Dialogue speech. Name set text. To that. What's it called? NPC dialogue. Ooh. Why you know? Oh, I haven't put the parameters in yet. Oh, that was silly. It's like, you can't do this because it doesn't exist in the project. It's like, well, it should. I'm sorry, I forgot. And scene ID. There we go. Now we should be able to do it. Dialogue, speech, name, set text. So NPC dialogue. There we go. Now it all works and it looks nice. Lovely. Then we need to set, oh, there we go, the actual dialogue itself, which is typewriter text. That's the text. Perfect. So that will call the correct line of dialogue out of the JSON file and make it all display and look nice. Oh yeah, I need the array, don't I, to store my answer. Oh god, questions are complicated. Branching dialogue is complicated. But good, it'll be fine. It does mean we can have, like, you'll talk to an NPC and he'll, depending on what you answer, then you get different things later down the line. That's the idea anyway. So we need a new object in here, which is our array, which we're going to call, what did I call it? Next scene. What am I doing? Question, that's what I'm doing. So we need all of that. All that down there. Oh. Always add your function parameters. Copy paste. Dialogue ID. Yeah, this is the slight issue with my way of working, which is, you know, make all of the things in small projects, then try and stick them all together. Have I stuck a question boolean in here? No. I need to add another one. Boolean is a question currently being shown to the player. I do the same. I'm glad. It's not just me. Okay, we need another function which is pick answer, which is also in the dialogue category. Set boolean question to false. Then we want to set the answer box to invisible. Set the selector to invisible. There. Okay, call the function dialog line, please. 0 and scene ID is next. Scene dot at, and that shows an answer. Add action, then we set current scene. To Mpc dialog dot get. Yeah, there we go. And then reset current dialog part to -1. No, not current layout. Dialog. -1. Woohoo! So that's all the dialog functions in that I need for the time being, which is great. In fact, I think that's all the functions that I need to add for the minute. I'm very happy about. Well, this is good. I have gutted a lot of this. Some of it works, some of it does not. Thank you for dropping in though, guys. I mean, I got some really tedious work done, which is great, and got to chat to you guys, which is nice. And we talked a bit about refactoring. We talked about adding categories to your functions and why you should do it. We have, yeah, started to gut my whole NPC system because it was big and horrible and stupid. So we can get the dialogue in, which would be nice when that eventually works. I have a lot of things to do, but as I say, you won't be seeing this game now for probably another month or so, so in theory, lots of work should have been done to it, providing I can find the time. I'm glad you enjoyed my existence for 10 minutes, Skyman. I'm happy I could brighten up your day.